Welcome to Childcare Rockstar Radio. I am your host, Kris Murray. Childcare leaders around the globe are breaking through challenges, leading the way in innovation, testing new best practices, and impacting children and families in a much more powerful and positive way than ever before. Each week, join me for interviews with early childhood leaders and experts that will leave you inspired to become the next childcare rockstar. Now, let's go. This is episode 125 of Childcare Rockstar Radio, featuring Joan Dillon. Oh, I'm so glad that you're back with me here at the podcast today. I've got an incredible one for you, and I know I might say that a lot, but this one truly is special to me. So much so that twice in this episode, while I was interviewing my friend Joan, I started to get verklempt. You know that feeling when you could feel the energy and the vibe coming up and just that gratitude and that love. And then you realize that you're on the verge of some tears of joy and happiness. And that's where I was twice in this episode. So I'm just glad you're here with me. This one, especially for you, if you're feeling like you're still doing all the things, feeling unappreciated, overworked, stressed and exhausted and burnt out, because Joan talks about being that person. And before she met me and our tribe, she was the do everything, run a million miles an hour, all the time, 24/7, clean the school and rake the new sand in the sandbox. That's what she was up to, guys. And so you'll recognize yourself in her, most likely, many of you. And Joan is special and unique to this podcast because she represents the world of nonprofit. So she brings that perspective of what it's like to be running a program that truly is there for the community and is a nonprofit. And so it's a little bit of a different model and has a board, And so I think that this is an amazing representation of all of you guys in the nonprofit world. So I love that. And before I dive into the meat of the episode, or just to give you some highlights and sneak peeks, I wanted just to share a little bit about me. It's been a while since I've shared what's going on in my life here on the podcast. And just got back a couple weeks ago from San Francisco at the time that this airs, and experiencing more amazingness with our Childcare Success Academy and my team. And we have never been stronger on my team. So my leadership team continues to evolve, and every single thing that I'm doing and that we're doing, we share and we coach you guys to do. And so you'll hear it in this episode because Joan was actually the Change the World Award winner at last year's Childcare Success Summit. And we'll be choosing another Change the World Award winner. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. But my life, it has never been better, easier, more fun, and stress-free, and really just vibrating at the highest level. And I've cleared my path of a lot of junk. So what I've been working on personally over the last 6 months is working with a coach of my own, an intuitive coach, and shout out to you, Kira Sherman. And she's helping me clear out a lot of old emotions and things that are sitting in my body. And so if you don't do that as a practice, it can get in your way. And so it's been incredible for me to work on the old junk and clear it out and sit with it, process it, and let go of it, and come to neutral about a lot of the old hurts, anguishes, and things that have happened to me in my life. And every single one of us, as part of the human experience, has these things. And so now it enables me and the people who are doing this work to not react and to process and just take things as they are and not resist. And so when you accept and just are in a place of constant love and joy and acceptance. Even when you're triggered, we all get triggered, but even then you just kind of reflect, take a moment, make space. And so it's a constant practice, but it really has completely changed the game of my mindset and the way I live. It's really changed my life. So without getting too woo woo, that is what I am up to. And it's an amazing journey to be on. Working with, I have one teen left at home and she's doing amazing things. And it's almost her 17th birthday. As the time that this episode airs, she will be turning 17 tomorrow, if you're listening to this real time. And one more year at home until she's up and out. So I'm literally 15 months away from being a true empty nester. And then what's going to happen? Sky's the limit, guys. I'll just drive off in my Porsche 911 into the sunset and stop at a bunch of childcare centers and give hugs along the way. I don't, but I am, I'm still here. I'm still doing everything, and I'm still excited to be on this planet with you. And so Joan will share with you on this podcast so many changes that she's made, that she started to make when she started realizing that life could be different. She attended her first Childcare Success Summit in 2017. It was life-changing. It took her a whole nother year until she joined coaching with me. And she's just awe-inspiring. She's lost 100 pounds. She's got a much stronger marriage. She's much healthier. She'll be on the planet longer, most likely, health-wise. She's making a huge impact in her community with hundreds of children, looking to maybe open another facility because now the bank account is fat. So I want to just dive in, and you're going to hear her story. You're going to hear her tell it about how she went from the do everything all the time, 60 hours a week, exhausted, and not a healthy place in her personal life, to a full 180 transformation. And then she shares how she then put that energy into her team and made her culture go from here to here at her school. And so that's why she won the Change the World Award. So let's meet her without any further ado. And I want to just also mention that tickets are on sale, and we're close to selling out. We're already about 60% sold out. Tickets are pacing way ahead because we're going to Nashville in October, guys, if you haven't heard. And you got to go to childcaresuccesssummit.com and get your tickets before the ballroom sells out, because we're going to have about 1,300, 1,400 people. We're trying to figure out how we're going to fit you all in and still make it a comfortable experience. And we will, and it's going to be amazing. And we're going to have some live music, and we're going to have incredible exhibit hall. We're going to go all out. We might have some neon. We're going to have some music. We're going to have some stages. We're going to have some drinks. And most of all, we're going to have connection. We're going to look at each other. We're going to give each other hugs, be there for each other and with each other. And we're going to have an amazing experience together. Childcare Success Summit 22 in Nashville. So go get your tickets. Okay, let's meet Joan. Finally, here on the podcast, Childcare Rockstar Radio. Let's go right now. Welcome, everybody, back to the podcast. This is Kris Murray, your host, and I am so excited today to introduce you to my friend and client, Miss Joan Dillon. Joan, how are you?
I am here with you, so I am awesome.
That's great. Thanks so much for taking the time today. Where are you right now?
Right now, I am at home in my home office.
And that is located?
In Glassboro, New Jersey.
Wonderful. And where in New Jersey is that roughly? Give us a sense of where you are in the state.
So, southern New Jersey, southwestern New Jersey, okay. Literally across the bridge from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Gotcha. Very cool. Tell us a little bit more about your business and anything that you want to share about your journey.
So Glassboro Child Development Centers is our business, our agency. I'm saying our because, as you know, we are a nonprofit. We're a private nonprofit organization. I say our because I feel like, my family and my team has been together a long time. Um, I have been at Glassboro Child Development Center since 1988. So a long time, almost 35 years.
Wow.
Um, Started out not as the executive director, started out doing school age childcare, but eventually worked my way up. And they, interviewed all kinds of people, but they stuck with me, lucky them. And we've grown from just an early childhood center to a multifaceted agency. So we have an early childhood center as well. We're licensed for 70. And
Okay.
then we have 3 very large after school programs.
Okay.
And I'm really proud of the work we do because we focus on helping families. We describe here as ALICE, like the woman's name, Alice, and that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. So these are all
Okay.
these essential workers, right?
Okay.
Who
Yeah.
aren't used to getting any kind of help from social supports, but we find creative ways to help hardworking families afford childcare without decreasing our price and decreasing our value. So that's been really rewarding for me.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of I was an Alice family, right, when I was raising my kids. So it was great to be able to pay that forward to other people, as we've gotten bigger. And I have a great team. I have very low staff turnover, so that makes my job easier. And I'm working on that sort of succession planning, kind of when I'm not going to be here anymore. But that's a little down the line.
Right. And how long have you been the executive director?
About half that time,
Okay.
2003. So almost 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet you've gone through a lot of personal and professional growth and change in those 20 years.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've spent more than half of my life there. So,
Right.
yeah, 2 marriages, one still intact, gratefully. Yeah.
Woohoo.
And I mean, we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
You've kind of heard little bits and pieces of that, but
Uh-huh.
just a complete the shift in, you call it stinking thinking, right? The way people get when
Right.
things are hard.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I learned from you and from the academy is about mindset, and that will set you free, right? Just changing your mindset. So
Mm-hmm.
we're proud of that process that's happened within the agency as well. Fortunately, before the pandemic hit, which again, makes things a tiny bit easier when you're coming out of it.
Right. So we'll talk about all those things. Also, I want to mention that Joan is our Change the World Award winner from last year, which was awarded to you in Vegas at the summit in 2021. And that work that you've done on your leadership has now flowed into the culture of your school and your staff. Turnover has declined greatly, retention, staff happiness, engagement. So we'll talk about that as well. I want to do a deep dive on that with you. So you mentioned your family home life, that you're married again and it's going strong. So tell me a little bit more about what's life like at home.
Yeah, married still. So my husband Randy and I, we have 4 children who are grown adults at this point.
Yeah.
We have his, mine, and ours. So we're a blended family, and that came with its rewards and also the bumps that happened. Our oldest is 33, and our youngest is going to be 26 soon. And he is the only one without children. So we have 8 grandchildren, and at the time that this is released, number 9 should be here. We're expecting another granddaughter
Any minute.
In
Okay.
May, the beginning of May.
Great.
And that whole process too, and the need for childcare, really, that's kind of what kept us, I think, and kept me in this field too, is knowing that quality childcare that I could have some sense of control over, that really helped. But yeah, there were times several years ago when we were, I would say, completely miserable, but just not connecting,
Yeah.
and things are so much better now. So much
Good.
better.
Good. Good. And what is a fun fact about you that not that many people know?
So not that many people in this who are going to listen to this podcast know. I would like to say that I was what I would describe an even tempered dance mom, if you will.
Okay.
Dance moms don't
Right.
have the best reputation from that
Yes.
syndicated TV show. And we actually
Yep.
met all those people. But yeah, our youngest gave up competitive hockey. He was playing hockey. And anyone who knows hockey knows how that can hit the pocketbook.
Yep.
And he also danced. So I asked him to pick one and he chose dance. So
Oh,
I
cool.
traveled up and down the East Coast with him competitively. He did really well and turned into a choreographer. We're really proud of all of our kids, but when you grow up, you're like, I want to do this when I grow up. And then we don't do those things.
Yes.
And he got to do that, the thing that he really dreamt
Right.
about doing. And now on top of it, he just finished his real estate license and now he's selling, renting properties at the Jersey Shore. So I'm hoping, he remembers mom when
Yeah.
he's a millionaire. So
Exactly. Love that. So you got to meet all of the dance mom people from that TV
oh
show?
yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a different type of experience
Yeah, I
because
bet.
when you have a dancer who is a boy, the attention seems to go in that direction. So
Yes.
everyone wanted to meet the boy,
Uh-huh.
including the little girls on that show. So
Right.
mom had to keep her nose in it to make sure everything was okay. But
Yes. I am also a former dance mom, even tempered. I didn't go to too many conventions or dance shows or whatever they're called, but uh, it's fun. It's fun to see your kids grow up. For me, I got to watch Maeve dance from the time she was 3 till 16. So
wow,
it's pretty great. It's pretty
yeah,
fun.
that's a long time.
Yeah.
Mine was 10 to 18.
Yeah. It's good.
And I miss it, but
Yep.
it is what it is.
Well, now the grandkids can get in on
There
it.
you go. One
Yeah.
is dancing,
See,
not with
there you go.
him, but one is
Yeah.
dancing. Yes.
Love it. So tell us, it's a nonprofit or not for profit. You've got 70 capacity. And then are the after school programs in addition to the 70?
Oh
Or is
yeah.
that part of it?
So
Okay.
yeah, no. So we have our standalone early childhood center is 70.
Okay.
Early on in it's going back more than 20 years, we entered into a formal memorandum of understanding and MOU with the school district here. And it's not a large school district, but it's a really close knit community, and we've become a university town. So Rowan University is here in our town. It wasn't a state college that had an endowment, and now it's occupying a lot of the town. So there's a lot
Okay.
of really cool collaborations, but the school district saw in us the value of having an in-school location. So unlike a lot of after-school providers, because we're nonprofit, we have no overhead in those buildings. So
Right.
their in-kind contribution to the community good is that we occupy the space after school at no cost, which
Nice.
in turn, regardless of income, keeps the cost for families at a really affordable
Great.
level. And
Yeah.
one of our programs won, we wrote a grant in 2020, right? We were awarded, and then boom, the pandemic hit, free after school for all of our middle school students. So that
Mhm.
program has the potential to serve about a third of the kids in the school, which is unheard of. Usually it's nice to hit 10% of the population. So each of those sites encompass about 470 slots if we ever were to be
Wow.
at full capacity. And right now, what we're finding is a lot of parents are using our services. We are probably 195 across the board, which is actually higher than pre-pandemic, believe it or not. But a lot of our moms are still working from home. So the need for childcare is not there, but we are starting to market to say, hey, but look what you're missing out on. And right after that second progress report time in January, when kids were still quite not doing well, we got an influx of enrollments. So I would suspect that after spring break and this next, we may be at over 200. So that's a good number. We will never be at full capacity because the population of the school doesn't really support that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, I love that. We'll talk more about the fact that it's, a growing college town, and that whole vibe is going to impact some of your marketing and also partnerships. So I want to talk about that, but I really want to dig in with you on team and on leadership, and you changed the world and everything you did there. So kind of take us back to, probably a year or two before COVID, when you started kind of maybe understanding who I was and what we do. And then maybe even before you joined the academy, like what was life like and what was your business like and what were you struggling with in terms of team, culture, engagement, leadership, those kinds of things? Kind of just take us back to before you started putting some of these things into action.
Yeah. So the quickest thing I go to always, not just at work, but at home, is I tend to run at 110 miles an hour and do everything. Right. I know that about myself.
Right.
And so I remember prior to joining the academy, coming to Chicago, coming to, you remember the story, right? I drove myself to Rosemont, right?
Yep.
Up to that.
To the summit
program.
in 2017. Yep.
17.
Yep.
I like to say on the agency's last dime, because
Right.
and I've shared with you my fear of flying.
Right.
So I drove. I will drive anywhere there's land. If I don't have to cross an ocean, I will drive there. And just feeling like there's got to be a better output for all the stuff I'm putting into this. There's got to be a better sense of I should be able to take a break, right? I should not have to do everything by myself.
Yep.
And that I was probably working, I think, 60 hours a week. And not that I don't do that anymore sometimes, but it's balanced now. Before it was, I didn't even take a break on the weekends. And I was opening the building, the preschool, and I was closing the preschool, and I was blowing leaves off of the playground.
Oh,
and
God.
I remember one year, we had to have sand delivered to our sandbox, and it was going to cost extra for them to rake it out for us. And I was like, no, I'll do that. And actually that just came up on my 10-year ago Facebook memory,
Yeah.
where I was thanking an employee for staying with me to rake out the sand. So,
right.
Now I can't even fathom being in that space where I felt like I had to do everything.
Right.
Physically, I was probably in what's called metabolic syndrome, where everything was out of whack: my blood pressure, my sugar, my weight, any pill that the doctor felt. I was taking probably 7 to 9 pills a day to control, body systems that were out of whack. And again, my marriage, right? My marriage was just suffering tremendously. And, sitting at that summit, listening to you and Coach Brian and other people talk about having an attitude of gratitude and having just being able to change your mindset to flip that. And we actually just talked about that again on our pod group this week with Rachel, about, you have to remember the things that got you through those initial aha moments of I have to do something. You can still rely on them, right? Because I was sharing with our pod that I was just having one of those, and Rachel's like,
Yeah.
remember, and I'm like, you're right. So,
Good.
focus on something that, or go back through your gratitude journal and say, oh,
Right.
but look at all these things that are awesome.
Right.
So I think back then it was just this being on this hamster wheel of trying to do everything and
Yep.
not getting any output from it.
Yeah. And going a million miles an hour, doing everything all the time, raking the sand, creates burnout, and it creates resentment and exhaustion. And then you don't have any time for your relationships or your health. Right. So you came to 2017, and then I don't know if you joined there or if you waited.
I think, well, we didn't have the money at the
Right.
time. And although had I let go of that vine, I probably we would have been in a better place quicker. But the next year,
Right.
2018, we were in Dallas
Yep.
and I got on the airplane
I know. Wow. That's
because when I
huge.
was in because when I was in Chicago,
Uh-huh.
from across this large room, I hear Joan Dillon. And I look and there's a colleague from New Jersey there
Yep.
who I had no idea was going to be there. So the
Right.
following year, she's like, you're getting on the plane and you're going to go with us. So I had supervision. So I felt good about it.
Right. That's awesome.
And while we were there, I was texting my operations director saying, I'm doing this. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell our board that it's going to cost, and I said this on the stage, it's going to cost a kid, right? A kid,
Yeah.
one kid. If we
One
enroll
kid.
one child, it'll pay for this growth membership. So we're
Right.
going to do this. We're going to lock in and we're going to do this.
Which I want to say that you have a board because you're a nonprofit. So a lot of our
Yeah.
nonprofit friends don't join as readily, or they just feel constrained because they feel like they have to get the blessing of their boards, which they do. But I love that you have the independence because of the way you're structured, because you're private, that you were able to kind of pull that trigger without having to go through all of the red tape.
And you know who I attribute that to is Tamina, I think it was, said on one of the, I don't know if it was one of the presentations but her thing was, and I've repeated this and I'm paraphrasing that, especially for women, and she's not the only one, but I think I remember her saying, we get into the habit of asking for permission.
Yep.
Right. And you don't want to ask for permission and you don't want to ask for forgiveness, right? You ask for support.
Yes.
So if you're an executive director in a nonprofit and a board of directors has hired you because of your knowledge and your expertise, you have to walk that line where you're not asking for permission for everything, nor do I ever want to ask for forgiveness for doing something I should not have done.
Yep.
But support. And I have found that has worked with my husband, with my kids, with my team, and with my board, that this, you have to believe in yourself and believe in what could be, and then garner support for that. So I send that message out in my arenas that I'm involved in, and people are like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And I was like, yeah, that's gotten me through a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, I'm not asking permission. I would like your support.
Right.
And then convince whoever you're speaking to, a strong argument for support.
Right.
And 99% of the time it goes well.
Yes. You just have to believe it, own it, go for it, have that confidence, and ask for, and then be transparent and vulnerable too, because people will respond to that. So I love that. And just that one thing you just shared, Joan, is going to help. There's people out there listening to this right now, and we'll never know exactly who they are.
Yeah. That
just got that from you, and they're going to go home and they're going to have a talk with their husband or whoever, and it's going to be life-changing for them. So that I'm getting the feeling. I don't want to start crying, so I'm going to keep talking. Okay, here we go. So I love that. So you came and then you joined Growth, and then you started little by little. You took everything back, as everyone does. and probably it was a big fire hose, and it was like, let's go, implement all this stuff. And then, but little by little, your culture, your team and your culture and your leadership got stronger and stronger. So just talk a little bit about that.
Yep. So fast forward to 2019 when you hosted in Orlando. And in Orlando, I think we brought 6 of my leadership team, because I kept talking about Kris Murray and, with growth, I was getting lots of coaching, but I had to translate everything
Right.
to my team, to
Yep.
my team.
Hmm.
And I said, you all need to come in, you need to drink the same Kool-Aid that I'm drinking because, and that's the same thing I just said so we bought 10 tickets for Nashville, and I'm like,
Right.
you all need to come and drink. But we need some new drinkers here. We need some new people
Yeah.
to come and do this.
Right.
So I remember saying to the team, the 5 of them, when we get into this room, you need to sit not in the front row, but like up front. Let's sit up front, and I want to sit on the end. So the reason I wanted to sit on the end is when you got up and you started talking, I was able to turn because I was on the end. I was able to
Right.
turn and look at their faces, and I literally could see light bulbs going off. Like, and they would look at me, and I'd be like, "See."
Right.
So when we got back from
That's so
Orlando,
cool.
we were able to begin as a group to preach the mindset
Yeah.
shifts that
Yeah.
we expected in our employees. And I'm so grateful for that, because then I came out to Atlanta in January of 2020, and that's the last time we were together for a long time.
Yeah.
And I attribute that mindset shift, that hard work we did in 2019, to why we are thriving now.
Yeah.
Because, and in the middle of that, I've shared with you weight loss surgery that kind of tackled all of that health stuff.
Right.
And I'm not going to lie, there's been some little bit of regain, but I'm still healthy, right? I'm still
Yes,
healthy.
for sure.
And when we went to Orlando for that, one of my bucket list things was to go to Discovery Cove. And you've got to wear a wetsuit when you're at Discovery Cove. And I was afraid I would not fit into it. And I
Right.
easily fit into it.
Yay.
And that was my, 100 pounds lost. Check this off. I got to swim with dolphins. I got to
Right.
do this. and that was really cool.
That's so awesome.
But I never knew life could be so fun. I never knew life could be so fun. And even through COVID, this has been life changing.
I love
And
that.
the people who have been with me all these years, because I've got staff who are celebrating 18 years, 20 years, 10 years. There's another site director at our organization, started 3 weeks after I did in 1988. So she's there,
Wow.
and we've seen this come full circle. And so the newbies are like, oh, it used to not be like this. And we're like, oh, let me tell you how it used to be. And I've got grandparents coming in,
Right.
doing tours with their children who are in
Right.
their 20s, going, you're still here? Oh, this place looks so different. It seems, not that it was bad before. I'm like,
Right.
no, it was pretty bad before. But they're like, oh my goodness, we love what you did. This you didn't used to do these tours. You didn't used to. So,
Right.
We can see the impact it's having on, generations of
families and children, and especially those teachers, which is everything. I love that you shared about the light bulb moments, because you see what's behind me, right there.
Yep.
For those of you watching on video, that light bulb represents everything. When I'm in the audience, on stage and I look in the audience, I can see them going off too. And it's like, that's my favorite part. So I'm glad that you position you and you were like looking back at your people and seeing them, because it's so cool to see those aha moments and to see those light bulbs, and just know that you're helping change the way people think, and it's going to translate into the way they live. And
And
that's
they have
just,
ownership of it
yeah,
because they reached that realization. I may have been the bridge to bringing them to it, but you can't force people to adopt
mhm,
change, right?
right,
You can just lead them to it and say, look what could be. And we don't look anything like we did 3 years ago, 4 years
right.
ago at all.
So when you did the leadership mastery course, did you do that with any of your team members as well? Did you have some other folks come in, or were you just doing that on your own and then you apply the techniques that you learned from it?
I think I did it on my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from that, you joined the Change the World contest and you entered the contest. And then we actually got more entries for Change the World, which is a leadership based contest, than we did for Rockstar this year. And it was a very difficult
Wow.
choice,
I had no
very
idea.
difficult. But yeah, I think there were 12 good ones. Maybe there might have been close to 15 or 20 entries. So it's hard. It's really hard to choose a winner from that. But you were chosen because you had such the most amazing story of transformation, and so many examples of what you had done to make those changes. And I'm just so grateful that you took the course and you've been on this journey with me and us for almost 4 years. Um, and through COVID, so it was because New Jersey had a shutdown, right? The whole state
Mandatory.
mostly
Yeah,
mandatory. Yeah. So
mandatory. So we're going to shut you down March 15th. Everybody has to shut down. Then it was you can stay open till the 18th to get your house in order. And on the 17th, they said, well, hold on. If you think you can serve essential workers' children with no definition of essential worker, loosely defined,
loosely defined, of
all
course.
of our parents are essential workers.
Right.
Um, but having to pivot with those, and I clearly understood them all. But when we got permission to be able to stay open, the difficult part was, unlike a private owner who could just make the decision, my board had already made the decision and we had already communicated that we were going to close, um, with the full intention of reopening. So the moment we closed, um, we laid everyone off, we furloughed everybody, and except for me. And my husband and I spent 3 months from March 15th to June 15th. I wouldn't say we gutted the preschool, but there was no excuse to not completely overhaul the building, because the first thing I thought was, as we got deeper and deeper, right? Because first it was 2 weeks, then it was a month, and then it was, when is this going to end? I wanted to make sure that to hold on to that culture, to hold on to that trust. So our core values are relationships, trust, fun, and excellence, right? So if I'm bringing you back, I need you to, we need to incorporate all of those things for when we reopen. So I literally said to my husband, we need to clean this place out. We need fresh paint, new floors. We need everything. All these upgrades. I need new sinks because I'm not having portable hand washing sinks. We did that. That's a nightmare. It's fine if that's all you can do, but so he does home remodeling. So guess what? He
Nice.
wasn't working anywhere.
Right.
He was working at a doctor's office that was empty. So when he wasn't there, he was with me. So for 3 months, when they came back, they had a whole new kitchen. They had sinks in their rooms they'd never had. They had all of these fresh updates. I scoured every classroom myself. And when they came back, I surveyed them and I said, we're coming back. We're going to reopen on June 15th. We got commitment from 18 families that they were coming back immediately. And so I allowed the staff to choose if they wanted to be the first wave back or the second
Okay.
wave back or the third. So I think that helped
Yes.
those that were feeling tentative to have
Yes.
a little, let that first that first line go in first, and let's see how this works. But
Yeah.
fortunately, we had really great, I would say 70% of the staff came back the first week. And then 2 weeks later, we had the next wave come in, but it happened where it was like 18, then 28, then 38, then 48. It was weird, the numbers, but by the end of the summer, we were almost where we were before we closed. Miraculously, we didn't lose. I don't think we lost any children, and I only lost one staff member to another. One of my teachers left to become an assistant director at an essential center.
Okay. Yeah.
So that I was okay with that.
Right.
Um,
Well, and so
then-
what you did was you gave them a choice and you let them buy into the process with these waves. And that strategy will help them feel more empowered and more in control of their destiny. And it's not like you shoved it down their throat.
No.
So that's an example of great leadership right there. I wanted to ask you, Joan, what were a couple of the things that come to mind that you did that you've done from learning about how to be a better leader that you feel specifically improved your culture or may have helped you with employee retention? Because a lot of people listening to this podcast are still really struggling with employee retention.
Yep. So again, Tamina, talking about
shout out to Coach Tamina.
Hey, Coach Tamina. I had an aha moment in Orlando when she talked about, she did a whole teachable, a whole session on taking care of your middle managers.
Right.
And I always felt like I did take care of them, but not in the way they needed to be taken care of.
Uh-huh.
And I needed to do a better job of that. And I still do. It's a work in progress because we get comfortable, right? But you can't stop. So I think adopting that mindset that if I take excellent, and I've heard this across many different leadership forums, that you take care of your people who are taking care of your people.
That's right.
So you need to dump everything you can into them.
Yeah.
So at Christmas last year, all of our management, our leadership team received a bonus, not a huge bonus, but a bonus. But I matched the bonus. And I said to them, here is an envelope for you to receive, to get. And then I gave them another envelope that said, this is for you to give. Because I've now been empowered to be able, because of our financial situation, to share with the people that I care about at work, right?
Yeah.
Monetarily, bonuses. How cool would it feel for them to be able to pay it forward as well?
Yes.
And I said, all I want back from you is just share a quick picture or whatever secretly. I'm not going to publish it. I just want to share in how that made you feel.
Right.
And most of them sent me like within a week. They were like, this was so cool to do. Like, and I said to them, it doesn't have to be one big gift. You can gift 5 people, or you can just like tell me how you paid that forward. And that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
They'll say to me, like, nobody does that. Like,
right.
So I think dumping as much as we can into their buckets to make sure that they feel valued and appreciated. And I was afraid you were going to ask me if I was reading any books or what I could. So I just want to just mention the one book that saved my life is the 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman.
Right.
Because he talks about, the 5 love languages are receiving gifts, physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, and quality time. Right. And that book saved my marriage, and it saved my ability to reward my staff at work, because if you don't know how people like to receive appreciation and love, you're on that wheel. You might, and then what? You get angry because you're like, oh, they didn't even appreciate. Well, no, stupid, because you didn't ask them what they wanted. So, and my husband and I realized that we were loving each other the way that we like to receive love, and not the way the other one wants to. So I bought about 20 copies of that book. And anytime someone, probably I should get it before this, but anytime someone announces an engagement, I give it to them. I'm like, you need to read this book.
Nice.
Gave
Love
it to all
that.
my kids for Christmas one year, and they're like, wait, do you think that something's wrong? But I'm like, no. But I wish I had had this book 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Love that.
so I think finding out the way that your people will accept that, well, not only acknowledgement, but correction as well, right? So you're not embarrassing them. And you're asking them, do you want an email or do you want a face to face? Because some people respond differently to that. But the other thing we did was, because of the positive financial benefit of the academy and this change in mindset, we were able to raise our salaries. New Jersey had the mandatory minimum wage. We'd never paid minimum wage, but when this started, minimum wage was like $8.30 an hour just a few years ago, and we're on our way to 15. And I always said, oh, we don't start you at minimum wage. No, it was like $9 an hour. So now I think New Jersey minimum wage is 13, and we don't hire anyone for under 15 now,
Nice.
for entry level. And we also have been able to provide comprehensive health benefits
Right.
for all the staff who need it, which I will tell you is not many, because unfortunately still many of our staff qualify for marketplace insurance.
Yep.
But our 401k, we have a match now. We gave up during the recession back in 2008.
Right.
So all these things.
Yep.
And we've always had very, very liberal paid leave, because we couldn't pay higher wages. We implemented referral programs. So now it's like, not bring your friend to work day, but bring your friend to work day. And I try not to have them work at the same location, just because stuff. But, I trust my staff, and they know I trust them, and they know that I trust them enough to refer someone who's not going to embarrass them, right? If they come and work for us, you have to live up to this. But then lastly, the thing that we also tried to do was we entered into a structured DEI consultation for diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we took a look at our families, and we want to make sure that our workforce resembles our families. Our field is notorious for not engaging men in this industry. And I will tell you, right now, I have 6 men on my payroll of 54 employees. One is in my toddler room.
Fantastic.
And he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's awesome. But trying to create career paths for folks so that they don't just use us as a stepping stone to a career, that I tell, when I did my introductory video, I end it with telling prospective, once we hire them in their onboarding video, to say to them, we want you to be so successful here that you could go somewhere else, but you choose not to.
Right.
And that whole idea of, you ought to want to be here, and not, oh, I have to be here.
That's right. And setting that up from day one.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. That's fantastic. Well, that's a lot, Joan. And I love that you've shared all of that. And your core values are amazing. Trust is one of them. So you mentioned that how you actually behave in the school, with how you're doing staff referrals, and everything ties back to your core values. So you're clearly living and breathing them and hiring to them, and hopefully not having to let people go too often. It sounds like very rarely. So I love it. I love it. I think we're going to close out with any final thoughts, and anything that you want to share that you haven't had a chance to.
The only thing I want to share is that, because we are I know there are other nonprofits in the academy. There's those sirens. Nonprofit doesn't have to mean reduced quality,
Right.
right? And that the families that we serve also may be low or moderate income, but they still demand and are entitled to absolute quality care. So I feel like I owe it to them to do whatever I can to give them the most I can for their dollar, not the least I can, right? To cut corners, we want to make sure that the quality piece is not lost in the affordability piece. And I think that we're accomplishing that.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's
Right.
hard. Nonprofits are chaotic, and they are messy, and they are complex.
Yeah.
But you have made this easier for us. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And it sounds like, we didn't dig into the financial pieces, but I know that you've mentioned it a couple times that you're also a much more financially abundant and smart organization. You're watching your, finances, you're on it, making more money, nonprofit, driving it back into the business, driving it into the community, helping families that need it, right? Helping employees that need it. So that is amazing. And that's why you are our Change the World winner, Miss Joan Dillon.
Thank you.
Good. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I have loved it. I know it's going to be very impactful for our listeners. And I just want to thank you so much. Joan Dillon with Glassboro Child Development Center in New Jersey. You're awesome. I love you to death.
Love you
and
too.
Thank you so much for being here today on the podcast.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone. And we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.